And so there has been, in most Western countries, a very substantial increase in expenditure on welfare and health. And that, of course, when we need now to spend more on defence, has left little room to spend money on defence. The best example is the UK, although the UK spends over 2% of GDP on defence. But, they've been reducing the size of the army. They've been reducing the size of the Royal Navy. So their capacity is somewhat diminished. So people say they should spend more on defence. But the problem is they spend so much on their National Health Service. I mean, they spend 44% of their budget on their National Health Service. In the case of Germany, which has been spending barely 1% of GDP on defence, Chancellor Scholz has now agreed to increase very substantially German defence expenditure. It's only they can't, because constitutionally they're not able to expand their deficit. And, of course, the public won't allow them to increase substantially taxes. Because the Germans have spent all their money on welfare. And green initiatives, by the way, are incredibly expensive. So it would pay to have a look at what these countries are spending on renewables and the so-called energy transition. And it just leaves little scope for increasing defence expenditure. That's the problem you have. I mean, you can see that with the Americans and the debates in the US Congress. Yeah, sure, a lot of people would like to spend more on Ukraine, but a lot wouldn't. And, a lot of the people who wouldn't would rather spend the money on welfare or whatever it is, securing the southern border and so on. So this is a huge problem. And yet the West, I think, is gradually waking up. So there's a cause for some cautious optimism here, is gradually waking up to the need to increase defence expenditure. Of course, it's not just the dollars and cents you spend, it's the capacity that you invest in, but in building that capacity. And they have been very struck by their incapacity to continue to supply Ukraine with shells, missiles, other hardware, and replenish all of that in their own countries. That has become quite an issue for them.